Jerry Mallory here, SBNationPrivateTrade.com. Let's talk Matthew Stafford. Depending on who you talk to, you'll get varying opinion on the future perspective of what looks to be the Lions franchise quarterback from this point until the next, decade? Some people say he's not that good. You know, they look at the interceptions, they look at the struggles, the inaccuracies, and they say, I mean, he's better than what we've had, but he does not have what it takes. Others say he's the next best thing. He's still young. He has lots of stats. He has the arm. He has leadership ability. He will be the savior for the Detroit Lions, and then everyone else is somewhere in between. Well, it's time to take a look and see how he's done so far. He's played 61 NFL games, and we're going to look and see how he stacks up with two other notable quarterbacks. We'll give you the reason why in this short video segment, and I'll wrap it up giving you my opinion of Stafford. I mean, he's at a pivotal point in his career. First 2 years were injury prone. He showed promise. Third year was great. He set the world and the league on fire. That next year, not so good. Last year started off good, the first 8 games, and then the last 8 games were atrocious for the whole team, but namely Matthew. So what is he going to become? Well, let's look at him through his first 61 games in comparison to two other notable quarterbacks, as this gives us a taste, an idea of where he is now and maybe where he'll end up. Let's take a look. Matthew Stafford has played 61 games in the NFL. How does he compare to some of the now greats? These two guys are surefire Hall of Famers. Now, there have been ups, there have been downs for number 9, but we have to keep in mind that he's young. And when we look at some of these greats, your Drew Breeses and your Peyton Mannings, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, some of them, yes, started off very strong right from the get-go, never looked back, but there were growing pains for some of them. The two guys in which we're going to compare his stats to is first Drew Brees. Now, the comparisons are plenty. Joe Lombardi, there in New Orleans, quarterback's coach around this explosive offense, knowing what it takes to have a quarterback dominate the league. Well, now he's in Detroit. He'll have his turn now, not just to be a quarterback coach. He'll help coach Stafford. He's the actual offensive coordinator. He's going to try to take a page from Pete Carmichael and Sean Payton. So we'll look at Drew Brees, and then there is Peyton Manning. I mean, it's Peyton Manning. He is the golden standard of quarterbacks. If you look at these pictures, these are all dedicated to Mike Dick. The first picture was Stafford. He had the hat on backwards. Then there's Drew Brees. He had the hat on forward, showing you how you need to be. And then Peyton taking it a step further. If you look here, he not only has a hat with the brim forward, it is not a hat, it is actually a visor. But let's look at a nice, fun, pretty graph. Through the first 61 games, we took a look at some major categories. Touchdowns, interceptions, then the ratio. The higher the number in the ratio, the better. That means you have more touchdowns than interceptions. Yards, completion percentage, and overall record for their teams. This is through the first 61 games that these guys started. And when you see red, this is where that quarterback out of the 3 did the best. So for touchdowns, Stafford is number 1, just edging out Peyton Manning. For interceptions, Brees wins with the fewest. Now, the ratio, I was surprised to see that Stafford has the best touchdown to interception ratio through the first 61 games out of the 3 of these guys. I was just sure that Drew Brees was going to be number 1. Now, it's very close. It's 1.490 against 1.493. But the fact that Stafford throws much more, has way more touchdowns, his interception ratio, touchdown, being a slight bit higher, to me, shows a little bit of promise. I knew that Manning would be last on this list because if you remember, he had several really high interceptions seasons when he first started. Yards, no surprise there, Stafford's number 1. Completion percentage, it's pretty close between Brees and Manning, but Brees is number 1 in that category. And then overall record, Brees, number 1 with 33 victories to 28 losses. Surprisingly, Peyton doesn't lead in any of these categories, but if he isn't number 1, he's number 2 in most of these, and there's no denying that Manning is the standard bearer of quarterbacks. Early on, though, his interceptions were a little bit high, so his touchdown-interception ratio is quite a bit lower. So just give you a perspective. You know, say what you want about Stafford. If you compare his stats to the first 61 games against these two greats, well, he's better in some areas, he's close in others. This gives us promise, but the key is this. What is he going to do in the next 61 games? Because this is where guys like Manning and Brees won MVPs, that rhymes, they won Super Bowls, they set the league on fire. It's time for Stafford now, in the second half, these next 61 games, to prove whether he can be of this ilk or not live up to the potential. They say numbers don't lie, and I guess that's true, but numbers don't always tell the complete picture either. I think the most important thing in all those stats is obviously the wins, but that's something that is not on the quarterback by themselves. Although the quarterback does probably have the biggest stranglehold on wins and losses. If you're going to pick one position in the NFL that has the most direct correlation between wins and losses, it is quarterback. But we know 53-man roster, the wins, those stick out the most, and he is in last place in that category. However, where do I lean? Am I in the Stafford sucks category? Am I think he's great? Well, if I'm a needle, I am leaning more so towards Stafford can be great. I do have confidence in him, but I will say this: the 61 games out the way, we saw what Breeze did, we saw what Peyton did. I'll tell you this much: after that 61 game stretch, roughly 4 seasons or so for all of these guys, give or take, when you consider injuries, this is where they took off. See, at that 62 game mark, Breeze is now in New Orleans. You saw what he did in New Orleans. You're seeing what he's doing in New Orleans. At that 62 game mark, Peyton, to start to take off. So Stafford, this is pivotal for him. He's learning a new system. We've seen OTAs. The offense as a whole is not, really caught on. There's a lot of factors. We have drops with this team, number one. And so he didn't have a running game for a good portion. Now he does have one, has a better offensive line. How long is the leash on him? If he struggles this year, do you then say it's time to draft someone, it's time to replace him? I think, and I'm not giving him a pass for this season, I'm saying this much. This season is very telling. It's as close to do or die without being do or die because of a new system, because of a new coach. I want to see some things, though. I mean, if the season resembles those last 8 games, yeah, maybe you do start to make moves. But I don't think he'll light the world on fire. I think he'll be better. Then the following year will be pivotal. He has to do that make or break type season. This year is pretty close, though. I'm telling you, once we're 8 and 9 games in, I may be changing my tune on that completely and saying this is the year. Overall, like I said, though, I have confidence in him. We have to give him credit for being a hard worker, for being someone that's very intelligent in terms of wanting to get better. We've always said things about his conditioning and whether he likes to party, but he does take his job seriously, and so we'll see. What's your opinions on Matthew Stafford? I just compared him to 2 greats. Not saying he's going to become them, but if he can come as close as possible, we'd all be just ecstatic, elated, enamored, entertained, and enlightened to see what it's like to have a true NFL quarterback for our Detroit Lions. So leave your thoughts. I was going to say comments. Comments would be like a combination of thoughts and comments. So yeah, I'll say leave your comments at the allocated section. Keep subscribing. We'll be back in a day or two. Feeling much better now. A lot going on. Don't worry. But Jerry Mallory is here to stay. Illnesses and things will come up, but we keep fighting. Great now, I'm 100%. I'll be back in a couple of days. And until then, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. This has been, as always, Jerry Mallory for SB Nation and PrivateTrade.com.